Hey everyone, it's Janet Huxley, JM Huxley on Color Speak, and I have a couple of really great guests with me today because these two are out to change the world for our kids. And I know a lot of ears perked up when I said that because our kids are so special and so in need of guidance and godly material because they are being brainwashed. I don't need to tell you that. I don't need to explain the grooming because we've all seen it lately in terms of what they're learning and seeing at school or on media or through tech. And it is time that people like my guests today um, change the world and shape it for the better. And they're taking control of that one of those seven mountains in arts and entertainment and for our children. So welcome Delightha and Nathan Meyers to the show. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you and you're so credentialed and I can't wait because I want to hear all about how you got involved in writing this new children's film. But so Delightha, you have been in arts and entertainment and on stage, and Nathan, it is your set designs that are featured in the Chosen series. So you have quite an interesting, wonderful background, just so perfectly suited to this sort of work. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit more about yourselves and how you got started in this.
Well, I went to college right out of high school for musical theater. I got my BFA from the University of Oklahoma and then moved to New York and tried that out. But really, I am not a New Yorker at heart. I'm a Texan at heart. So I moved back. And within moving back to Texas, I met this guy next to me within a month of being back in Texas. And I also got my equity card, which is for the stage. It's the stage union for actors. And I was 22 and I worked for over a decade only acting on stage, doing mostly children's theater and musical theater. And I loved it. And then I had a kid and my priorities shifted. And I just felt really guilty being at the theater when I really wanted to be at home with my baby
Mhm.
girl. So, right about then, when I just drew that line in the sand and said, you know what? I'm going to take a break from acting on stage and I'm going to be a mom now. Right about that time, something shifted with him, and we came together and we started creating films, keeping God in mind. And I'll let Nathan take it from here.
Uh, yeah, and I am a preacher's kid. That's probably important to most people to understand or contextualize me. I'm one of four brothers. My dad planted churches for 40 years. I thought I was going to follow in his footsteps and ended up in Bible college and studied Bible and Russian language and went into the mission field and uh, lived in Russia for a couple of years doing mission work. Came back to the States, thought that I was going to keep working for the church. And then but my whole childhood was spent doing creative arts stuff from theater to 2 and 3D art to music. And I just, I wasn't, I grew up in a rather conservative fundamentalist group, and there wasn't really a place for me as I couldn't quite fit the cog of my creative wheel into my particular church heritage, and I was really struggling. And It's funny, it's ironic. Dorothy Sayers says that when we find the work that's ours to do, that it should enliven our souls,
Mhm.
and if we're doing something else, she calls that soul deadening work. And it's
Wow.
ironic that you could feel soul deadening work while working for the church.
Mm.
But it was kind of killing me. And it was interesting because I felt very obligated. But the Lord released me. He was like, "Hey, I didn't make you for this purpose. It's not for now, not for this, not for them. And so I want you to go back over here." And so I ended up over into the art in the arts full time. I went right back to the music industry, and I used to tour music with my brothers. And I started scenic painting for my local high school where I had gone to high school. And so I was a scenic painter, I was a musician, I was an actor. Then we all ended up in Texas and from Indiana, which is where I had been raised. And a big shift, a big jump. Ended up at a children's theater directing music where I met Delitha. and we had these paths where we were kind of parallel artistically. She was working for one of the children's theaters in town called Casa Manana for that decade, where she was working locally on stage, and then I was kind of toggling creatively. I would tour with my brothers a little bit. We would tour worship music and pop music, and then I would go do a show, or I'd get a gig, scenic painting or doing some art for someone. And I was just kind of floating around artistically. In those years, I produced 3 features with friends, and worked in art departments from time to time as a scenic or an artist. In 2005, I worked as an associate producer with Tammy Lane Productions for about a year, and then left the company. And about 18 months later, Tammy Lane showed up at a Starbucks where I was working part time, and she said, "Hey, can you come help me? I want to. I have a well, in '05, we'd conceptualized what was going to be the Capernaum Studios Village, and she came back. She said, "Would you come out to the ranch? I want to show you something." And she had already broken ground on what was happening out there, but it wasn't going well. And she said, "I need help. Please save us." And so I jumped back on the team in 2008 and continued the design work and the finish of what is now the village, and then spent another 18 months out there building what's called the Majestic Statue Garden, which is just a really incredible experience to walk through scripture and statues, and takes you from Genesis to the resurrection. And it's a really neat thing to have been a part of. And so that began to open doors for me to just film companies and theaters and other people who wanted to have me and churches too, because I've done some work for several churches jumping on their team. So we've had but in 2014, 15 is when Delisha and our parallel paths kind of began to join, and we looked at each other and got a very strong call to sell a house, sell a vehicle, track with the Lord for a minute to try to figure out where he was pointing us. And we got a very clear direction to go back into the film industry, make a movie, keep me in mind. And, uh, and that was it. That was kind of where it began. And Delitha conceptualized the seed screenplay for our now project that we're releasing at the moment, and I ended up writing music for it and directing it. So that's kind of where we are today, and we hope to do some more. But our first project took several years to get it under our belt, so we're just now getting it out to the world, and hopefully we will have the courage and the it's more about courage. It's not about resources. God has all the resources. For us, it's about faith and courage and desire to step back out and do something else.
I have so many questions. The first, of course, is how did you end up writing a children's series? I know this is kind of your thing because with a child and being in the arts and entertainment business, maybe that's a foregone conclusion for you both. And then the other thing is, before I forget, I just want to remember to ask you part of your description in talking about this film that you've written that is God honoring. You also use the word bold. So I really want to explore that. I want to hear from you why you use the word bold. Okay, go.
So I wrote from what I know, and I know kids. I have always worked with kids. I've taught them theater, I've taught them voice lessons, I've taught dance lessons. And then I remember being a kid myself, and we love the genres of, coming of age stories, movies that take place in junior high, high school, that sort of thing. And so I just kind of wrote from what I knew. And I also knew Mean Girls. And so there's, a mean girl in this show. And but it, we get to see her be refined and become a better person. But I knew the Mean Girls. And so
Yeah.
it was not hard for me to write her because I know those people, sadly. And now that my daughter's 12, I homeschool her, so she's not really meeting these mean girls, but she hears from fellow friends who do go to school in public schools and private schools, and she hears the stories. And one of her best friends, Aurora, told me, she goes, she is a movie. All the stories she tells me about what these girls say to her and what they do to her. I mean, it's what we've seen in the movies. Like, yeah, it's a real thing. So it was not hard for me to write that stuff. And so when my daughter, she was young when I wrote this, and I wrote during her nap times, and it was amazing what I can accomplish in a nap. Because before I had kids, I mean, it would have probably taken me years to write the film, but because I'm like, I have these 2 hours right now, you
Mhm.
just produce so much in that short amount of time. And then after I'd written the first draft, I handed it over to Nathan and one of our other producers, Jason, and they really,
We refined it.
yeah.
We did what co-writes or rewrites do in a writer's room. You take somebody's finished screenplay and you evaluate it, and you just ask a lot of questions and go, well, is that joke landing, and does this character work here? And so we rewrote it with under a bit of a comedic microscope, and then had decided at some point in the writing process that it was going to be a musical. We both met doing musical theater. I was a songwriter, and so it just seemed to make sense to us based on what it was, because it wasn't contrived. We did not set out to quote unquote make a movie for kids. We just Delightha just started writing, and the thing that came out was this. It's like, oh, it's a boy, It's like, oh, we didn't know what it was until it's born, right? And then you retro analyze it, and you look back and go, oh, okay, well, it's a story about an anti-hero. It's about a little girl who's kind of mean and lonely and conniving. That's bold within itself, Janet, because that to have an anti-hero main character is bold, but to have a female anti-hero main character is even bolder. And so there's some aspects of boldness, but
Mhm.
those were all things we realized after it was written. Jason and I rewrote it. We added music, and suddenly you turn around and you go, "Oh, it's a musical. It's a musical movie," and then people are like, "Oh, you guys are trying to compete with the Big D, or and we're like, no, we're not really. That's not what we were doing. We were just being obedient to a call to make something and to keep the Lord in mind in the making of it. And we agreed, we just said, we're going to make a movie, and we're going to keep the Lord in mind. This was the result. And now we're retro engineering all of it too, going, oh, I guess the Lord wants us to talk to parents about kids. He wants us to talk about some of these issues that kids are facing, because they're in the movie, they're in there, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of how some of this has come to be as well. But
It was very organic. I mean, I didn't purposefully put in cyberbullying, but guess what? It's one of the main themes is how do we use technology for bad? How do we use it for good? And that is a very real thing that we are dealing with right now in the world, with especially with kids and teens and how it's really affecting them. Um, we read a statistic that it's like at least 60% of all kids who go to a school are going to be affected by cyberbullying, whether they're the person doing it or whether they're the victim. But 60%. And
It's
then
infuriating.
it's crazy.
I will tell you, in your neck of the woods in the Dallas area, my daughter does work for a church. And so she has her four children in school. And it's a great school as far as my understanding is concerned. But my 8-year-old granddaughter was bullied this last year. And the child in her classroom wrote a burn book. And over here, her aunties and myself, I mean, we're just incredulous. Like, what how does this happen? Because my kids will tell you, and they said it, they said I would have been so much more afraid of mom than and dad than to bully anyone, but they were raised in a way that they would never. I mean, there is no way that I would have ever tolerated that. There's no way that that would have ever happened. I'm not sure why it does, whether parents don't care, they're checked out, whatever. There's extenuating circumstances, and I know hurt children hurt children. And I, like you, Delitha, I was in sixth grade when my family's house burned down in San Diego, and I got to school, and the bullies on the playground, I still remember their names, kept
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, what a burn. Janet's house burned down."
Mm.
And I just, yeah, I can relate. I think most of us can relate. And I also would say, I think if some of these bullies understood the ramifications that, first of all, people don't forget. I mean, I'm 60 years old now, and I still remember what happened on that playground, and I still remember the first and last names of those individuals that did that. Not that I have, and listen, they were on my forgiveness list. When I made a
Sure.
forgiveness list of all the people that I need to forgive in my life, and the Lord said, forgive them, and I have absolutely. But it's astounding to me the levels that it has reached now.
Yeah,
So, and I just want to make sure I do mention it's Aria Appleton Shines.
that is
So
correct.
is it a feature length film? And then I'm thinking, since there's such redemption, is she then going to go on to do other things? And do you have other films in the works?
We've talked about Arya goes on a camping trip
Yeah.
because that seems to be like the sequel. Everyone goes on a camping trip in number two, but I don't think so. We've spent so much time with her
Yeah.
over the last decade that we are okay with her just living on in
Yeah.
this one movie. I have dabbled with like writing a children's book series based off of her, and so that's in the works. I don't know if I'll actually finish it. I'm wondering if my daughter will actually take it on and finish it because she is a little amazing author. But no, I don't want to. I don't want to write a sequel. I really don't. I want to move on to a new character set and a new
Sure.
adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
You did
kind
the
of feel
voice.
like the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just was wondering, did you do the voiceover? Did you sing for her in this musical?
No, her name is Sarah Grace Prejean, the actress, Aria
Okay.
Appleton, and she is amazing. She was one of my voice students, actually.
Oh, awesome.
If you haven't heard her sing, just go. So we have a soundtrack too. You should just go listen through the samples of the soundtrack and just listen to her. She's got an incredible voice.
Yeah, and she was 11 when she was cast, and those kids are all in college now. And because it's taken that long to get the film posted, and then and then to get it post pandemic posted,
Oh, sure.
uh,
Yeah.
because we were delayed by at least 2 years during the pandemic. And then went back to festival after an initial festival cycle pre pandemic. And in the second festival season, we ended up at Content and Christian Worldview Film Festival. We ended up winning an ICVM Gold Crown Award through ICVM, which was really exciting and and we were nominated for Best Picture that last year against Sound of Freedom and Jesus Revolution, which was a big deal for us, but it was a bit of a God wink too, because the length of time that it had taken us from inception to that final festival screening was nearly 10 years, which was the same length of time that it took Sound of Freedom to go from script to screen into its distribution. And so it was as if the Lord was going, it's okay. They had a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of famous people involved, and it still took them 10
No.
years.
Oh,
You
yeah,
guys
they
were working
struggled. Yeah.
with yeah, and we were working with 5 loaves and 2 fish and passing it out and letting the Lord multiply, and we still had a similar timing scenario to get it out. So
Yeah, no, I think that that is so understandable. I can feel that because it's taken me some time too. And as I shared with you earlier, I'm about ready to put out my first novel, and it was completely finished and edited 2 years ago. But
uh,
for various reasons, it just you tend to just have to wait on this kind of stuff and back burner it. And the first time I published, it was arduous at best. So I understand. So
well,
we,
it's funny. We got our hand slapped a couple of times, uh, attempting maybe prematurely release it or prematurely distribute it, and felt as if the Lord just kept going, no, no, not yet. Wait, just wait until you talk about it being excruciating, or exasperating. It's funny. I kept I'd wag my finger at him and be like, "Scripture says fathers do not exasperate their children,"
I say that
and
all the time. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I'd hold him to that,
Yeah.
and it was as if he's just up there smirking, going, "Just chill. You're going to be okay. Just wait, because I have a plan for this project, and you don't get it yet." And so, but we're starting to see some of that, finally come to fruition. So,
Mhm. So where
I
can
want
we
to
see it? I mean, I have so
Okay,
many other
yeah, you can see it
questions,
at
but I know people
Prime,
wouldn't. Okay. Oh,
Prime
it's on
Video.
Prime.
Yeah. And so
Nice.
it's for purchase or rental
Okay.
on Prime Video. Just search Aria, Aria, Apple, like the fruit, Ton. It's one word, Appleton, and it'll pop up. And if you're on your computer searching or your TV, then the soundtrack might pop up too.
yeah, and the soundtrack's available at Apple Music, iTunes, and Amazon Music.
Mhm.
And if you visit some of our links, it takes you out to a site called Here Now. It looks like a link tree with all those music links, and you can preview all that music if you'd like to listen to it in advance. And yeah, but it's interesting because we were going to drop mid-June. That was our initial goal, and we ended up going to Amazon for publication, which is now closed to independent filmmakers, by the way. Amazon Prime Direct doesn't exist anymore. They have closed that gate, and we had an account previously set up with them at the end of last year, and ended our uh, kind of last potential distribution conversation with a traditional distributor, and got to a point where we realized we're not going this traditional route. This is not the way this project is going. And everyone was going to require us to spend our own dollars to market anyway. And so we just kind of got to a conclusion. We were like, well, if we're going to market this ourselves, we're going to be grassrootsing it on our own with on our own dime. Um, then we're going to take it to Amazon because we can, and that was kind of how we
We
ended up.
decided we were going to homeschool her. Is
Yeah,
what we
we
decided.
used to joke about that. We
Yeah.
would say if the movie's got a lot of public versus homeschool humor, and so we were like, if Aria Appleton can't go to an Ivy League distributor, then she will be homeschooled, and that is exactly where we are. But I kid you not, Janet, and everyone listening will appreciate this, but the Lord kept closing doors for that type of broader, bigger, more fancy schmancy distribution. Um, but most of those contracts were untenable. They were untransparent. They were unfair. Some of them were criminal. And we were just like, we can't. Apparently, we're not going this direction. But when we decided to go this particular route, it was despite the fact we really didn't have the money to market. We were like, well, we're going to have to market regardless on our own. We might as well distribute on our own. And so, and as with many decisions that had been involved with production from day one, we just said, okay, Lord, apparently we are going to begin distribution through Amazon self distribution. That's how we're going to approach this. But with what will we make it? How will we actually move forward? And the very next day, after we made that decision, the money appeared for us to kind of buy some marketing to go that direction. And so it was confirmed, knowing that you're on the right path, and that's how things started for us too. So it's kind of normal in our world now. That type of five loaf and two fish
Get
multiplication.
it.
That's what we're doing.
I get it. I mean, I myself I have already a couple of things published that I have done little to no marketing on because it just is so problematic to go up against the big guns. And literally, if you want 100K to invest, let's say for a book, you want to be seen and widely honored, I guess, then maybe that's the case. But, I always think we play to an audience of one. And I just think what I was hearing the Lord say as you were speaking is your movie is such a fragrant offering to Him that what you have done so honors Him. And, I'm so excited because I will say, before I sat down here, I was talking to him and I said, I should really look up that verse that talks about the millstone. Because when it comes to children's entertainment, we've all seen ghastly representatives of what is being sold, peddled as entertainment for children. And as I was sitting here, I had my Bible and I thought, oh, I'm just going to open it. And then you popped on. I thought, oh, I'll get to that verse later. Would you believe it opened exactly to Matthew
Hmm.
18:5, where it says, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me, but whoever causes one of these little ones to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. And I just think the Lord is making such a point. This is so crucial, a turning point. I think in my opinion, I think we're in a pivotal place. And I don't see, maybe for a minute, this is on Amazon, but I think the Lord, well, first of all, there's a pushback across the globe from all of us who have said enough already of the filth that is being sold to our children. What can we do? So you've done this thing, and I do see it taking off even to a greater extent. I know right now you said it's Amazon Prime. So what happens after that? I mean, now that we don't have DVDs in our closets anymore, where do films go to live once they've sort of played out on various platforms?
Well, we don't intend to play it out on platforms very quickly. We do have, it's interesting. We got an offer today from a platform saying, "Hey, do you guys want to bring your movie over here to our platform? We'll pay you about 3 cents." Um, it's amazing how little these platforms will pay the filmmaker, and so it's completely impractical for reasons other than visibility
Mhm.
to send your project to a platform like that. And the days of being able to actually make money off of a project are they're not gone, but people who want to make a living doing it, just even if you just want to make your money back, give your money back to your investors and make something else, if that's your goal, keep milk and bread on the table at home. If that's what you're doing, then you have to be very careful because you can turn over a product like that to the streamers at the moment, and they will absolutely gut you because they'll pay the filmmaker very little. That The streaming concept is starting to lose some ground, and everything's moving to what we call AVOD. It's advertisement based streaming, and so that area, like Tubi and Hulu and things like that, you can actually do a little bit better through those streamers, but. We're being very cautious, very careful because we've invested a lot of time and energy into this. We've also it's the stewardship of the project as well. The project belongs to the Lord. Anytime that we've attempted to go a particular direction that wasn't right, he slapped our hand and just said, no, not that. When we moved forward with Prime Video specifically, not only did he bless that and say, yes, this is the doorway in. Um, it was funny because I started to say earlier it was going to be mid-June for us for a launch, and she came up to me at the end of May and she said, "We just passed publication. We're live." And I went, "Oh," because everything we'd read up to that point was it could take 3 to 6 months to make it through the publication process. But it was ironic because I had told her, I was like, "That's not going to happen for us." I said, "We're going to pray for the timing of our launch to coincide with our plans." And we did. And it was funny because it was as if we looked back and the boat had been cut free from the dock. You know what I mean? Like we weren't aware that we were now out to sea. And so we just, oh, we have launched. The Lord has launched us. And we weren't even quite ready, but here we go. And I do know, and I believe in this principle, to him who has, more will be given. And right now we have distribution and we have intellectual property, and we have an understandable and fair relationship to the current distribution scenario. And we will not be in any distribution scenario that is untenable or unfair. I do believe DVD and Blu-ray and tangible media will come back.
It's
I
back
know
in our
it's
house.
back in our
Silver
house.
Well, I
DVDs.
have same, but I of course with seven grandchildren, I have to. I have a linen closet that I was
Yeah.
just looking at today, just filled every shelf with DVDs, and I'm thinking, what do I do with these? And I thought, well, if I donate all of them, I have room for shelving. But then I think, no, I mean, it seems so, it sounds counterproductive to have all of this and not have a way to play it. I have retained one little TV for the grandchildren that has a place where you can stick one in. But I would love it if we had a way to continue to play those DVDs. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we have a couple of even VHS and DVD players, Blu-ray players in their boxes, like they're unopened,
It's
and
you. That's like
with just
gold.
the expectation that tangible media is going to return. I know a bunch of kids that are in their early and mid 20s who are collecting DVDs and Blu-rays on purpose because they believe this as well. And so I'm confident that the DVD Blu-ray scenario won't go away, especially if the filmmaker has anything to do with it. Because if distribution remains so uh, just incredibly unfair to the filmmaker, then the filmmakers will find a workaround. And we'll go back to selling DVDs out of the trunks of our cars. And if we have to, in order to maintain some sovereignty over what we're doing and stewardship over something that God has called us to do, we're feeling particularly uh, careful about that on His behalf and on behalf of the project. So, because we do know there's they're not just competitors, but there are forces of influence and things like that that would like to see a project like ours become unavailable.
Well, yeah, it's called evil.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
We have an enemy that is
Mm-hmm.
roaring about like a lion and trying to destroy every bit of good that we're endeavoring to do. But I have news for him. We win. So I think
Right.
we keep going. And I do so understand what you're talking about in regards to just putting yourself out there and having so much expense too on the front end. Because even as an author, it's ridiculous the costs that are associated with editing and layout and book cover design and all the things, and you just want to be able to recoup some of it,
Right.
and to be able to know that you're at least touching a life, even one, but playing to the audience of God and knowing what an offering that you give him. I just think he's going to bless it. So clearly he
Thank you.
has in terms of awards, and I just pray blessings over this project of yours. I hope that it just gets a wide viewership. And I will say I'm excited because I'm driving down to your neck of the woods in a couple of weeks to pick up a couple of grandchildren that are coming back here to stay, and we're going to watch it. And we're going to
Awesome.
listen to the music. And especially I babysit the 1-year-old that lives here in this area. And we're always looking for good music. I wake up every morning with the Mango Man stuck in my head, the song. So I need some new tunes.
That's great.
I also want to say we made a parent and leaders guide that goes along with the movie so that if you do want to sit and watch it as a family, which is what I encourage everyone to do, make it like a family movie night sort of thing, that then after you watch it, you can have discussions with your family about the themes like adoption, dying to self, honoring the parents, all of these things. These are themes in the movie, and we've created little teaching moments and scriptures that go along with that and some questions, and then we have worksheets that the littles can do to entertain themselves while they're listening to the big conversations. And so that's available on givesendgo.com/ Aria Appleton. And you can give a penny or whatever you'd like to. It's just a donation. And in exchange for the donation, we give you that guide that can help create conversations with your family.
That's awesome. It's give, send, go backslash Aria.
Yeah, .com and then / Aria Appleton.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we can provide all of that
Okay.
to
Yeah, that'd
you.
be good.
Hmm.
But yeah, we really hope that we can empower parents to do that with their kids. One of the reasons that entertainment is kind of discipling the kids is because they spend so much time in front of a screen, and so much of that's made is not made with the ideological positions and belief systems that you guys support. That's and 15% of what's produced across Hollywood is made for families and kids, and the vast majority of that is not Christ-centered. Or doesn't have a Christian worldview. And so that means there's a very small percentage of stuff that's available for families. You're constantly being foisted against your will and to your surprise into conversations with your kids because you sat and watched something that you thought would probably be safe. And then right in the middle of it, you're going, oh, great. Here we go. I'm going
Right.
to have this conversation
Exactly.
now. And with my 9 year old, and I shouldn't be having this conversation in a perfect world for a few more years, but here we go. And we have a kind of a tough talk, a straight talk rule in our house. They ask difficult questions. We just answer them. And we've found that if you just do that with kids, they just go, oh, weird, all right, and move on. If you act strange about it or you act awkward too much about it, they tend to wonder why does Dad seem so weird about this? Why can't he just answer a question? And so we have kind of a straight talk thing. We're hoping to empower parents to maybe be able to do that, but on their own terms, where they can sit and watch something with their family. They know it's going to bring up some subject matter that it doesn't put the parents on their heels. It actually empowers the parents to uh, to actually go, hey, oh, whoa, what an interesting movie we just watched. What do you guys think about that? And the kids will love it. We've had kids as young as 6 and 7 who are obsessed with it, and kids in their 20s and 30s that think it's hilarious the way they would enjoy or I would enjoy something like Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Napoleon Dynamite or something that was quirky and strange, and so it has a very broad likability for people, but it really hopefully sets the parents up so that the parents can do the discipling of their own children. That's not what we're not trying to do that for you. You need to do that for your own kids, but we want to. We're hopeful. We're hopeful this can be a tool that parents can use to inspire those family movie night conversations or dinner table
You
conversations.
asked earlier about being bold, right? And so the movie is bold because of these themes that are in it that just organically became these major themes. They weren't contrived and forced. But one of those big, bold themes is honoring parents because most of the stuff that our kids see nowadays is doing the opposite of that. They're taking the authority away from the parent. The parents are looked at as buffoons, or they don't know what is really best for the kids. And the kids have this complex of just being, I don't know, they have no fear for what's wrong or what's right. And so we're in this movie, the parents have the authority that God gave them to have. And we're presenting that in a way. Sometimes Aria, who is the main character, she sometimes looks at the adults and, it's like, ugh. But guess what? She has consequences for that. And by the end of the movie, she has been refined and she has cut,
Turned over
turned
a
a
new
new
leaf.
leaf.
Yeah, I think
And
that's so important. I think 20 plus years, probably more than 20 years, I had to disallow Rugrats in my home
Mm.
because I
mm,
felt they were very disrespectful of the parents. Or anytime I would see a sitcom for kids, supposedly, and the kids slamming the door, running upstairs and slamming the door, I said, "You will never slam the door." One thing I did like is when the second Parent Trap came out when the kids were older, and the child slammed the door, and the mom took the door off the hinges.
hmm
Finally, not that that was any award winner as far as parental respect is concerned, but I think it's great. So I appreciate it, and I'm just like I said, in contrast, I've really been surprised at even what my grandchildren have watched. One of them here, I was babysitting in this area, and she wanted to watch some cartoon, and I put it on, and it was literally, I'm not kidding you, possessed cats. They were
mm,
demonic. It was demonic. And then there was some weird trance thing, and this is all animated, where somebody's standing on the side of a building, and this weird person came up, and it looked like they were going to push the child off. And I'm thinking, and I just looked at her. I said, we need to get this off. Um, and I would argue that not only is it not wholesome, Nathan, you spoke about this earlier, but I would argue I think in many cases it's an actual it's intended to harm. It's a
Right.
concerted effort to brainwash and to program and to bring our children around to, the drag queen way of thinking, demonic possession thinking, all of it, and it just needs to stop. It really does. And I think another place we need to tackle, and this is off in the weeds as a sidebar, but even just watching a football game anymore in the fall with all the demonic, weird Halloween commercials that come on, that has to stop. That needs to be disallowed. In
You
my
know,
Yeah.
one of the reasons that's happened, Janet, I was doing a little research, um, and the MPAA, which is the ratings organization, used to be run by the Christian Church, the denomination. Do you know that?
I did.
And they took a back seat in the 80s because it became a little it became not something that the cool kids do anymore. If you were one of the cool kids in the church, then you didn't involve yourself with Hollywood because Hollywood was dirty and had a mixed reputation, and so a lot of people in the church took a back seat. And they what we need are more people at the table. We need more people involved. We need more people taking action, making not content. We don't need more content. We need more good storytelling that is told and inspired by the great storyteller Jesus himself. Things that are not just wholesome, but they're true. One of the things that people are going to see in ours is there is some negative reproducible behavior in our film. You can't tell a great story
Right.
without having a villain, and you can't tell a great story about someone's transformation without showing where they've come from. And so our movie opens with our main character in her transformed self narrating her own story. It's a warning tale. She's saying, "Hey, here's my story. Here's how things were, and I don't condone my own behavior, but here's what it was, and here's what happened, and here's how it all unfolded." And so I hope and pray you guys will give her a chance when you watch the movie, because it continues to explain itself as it goes along. Um, but we need more people willing to boldly create things that might ruffle people's feathers a little bit, and especially a story that would cause people to laugh or question things or go, what do they really mean by that? Madeline L'Engle, who wrote Walking on Water and A Wrinkle in Time, the author, she said, if adults won't get it, write it for kids. And I kind of feel like this story is a bit like that. It's a parable, and there's some allegory and some metaphor that the kids will get. The kids will get it immediately. We're hoping and praying the parents will get this stuff too, because the messages about the discipline of God and the way He refines us are inherent in the story, and the way that we have to die to be reborn, that's inherent. And we hope you guys will pick up on all of that. And for some parents and people maybe in media or cursory to the media arts, or that maybe you'll get a little more involved, you get a little more intentional about how to use the tech, use your gift, use your education, use your money, use whatever you've got to get behind people who are trying to do what this is, and making impactful, wholesome stories that will really speak and teach.
Yeah. Amen. That sounds amazing. Well, I'm so delighted to have you with me today. Thank you so much for sharing, Delitha and Nathan. And I want to make sure I get this right again. Aria Appleton Shines. Super easy. I love the shines part. Aria Appleton is a darling name. So that's a show we want to see. And I hope that the rest of you who've tuned in for us today, please go out and support wholesome programming for your children by watching this and supporting what the Meyers have done. And we just want to pray a blessing over you. And I'm just going to say it out loud. Lord, just bless this couple in front of me, do amazing things with their film, and give them the wherewithal, the desire, and open all of the doors for future endeavors where it comes to this kind of thing, because these are kingdom builders here today, and we honor them and we thank you for the connection. So, in your name, Jesus. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
having you on the show, and just make sure I'll go back through my notes, and I'll make sure that I get all the information up. Make sure I send you or you send me the Give Send Go information so I get that up there too. So, all right, until next time, thanks for
Excellent.
joining us on Color Speak. I appreciate you tuning in today.